I'm Dave from Goodwood Emporium, and I'm going to show you how to make this 8-ball. I wanted to make something that was different. Not something that shocked people, but was surprising. And sometimes the answer is a lot closer to home if you just try and think about doing it in a different way. If you think about it off the top of your head, it's a really difficult thing, you know, to make an inlay on a curved surface. And it just came to me that you don't need to do all that maths. Rather than making this spherical shape first and then doing all the complicated maths to work out exactly where you're gonna cut and what your plug's gonna look like, I thought if you think about it doing the inlay before you've made the surface curved, as long as you make the inlay, the white, deep enough so that when you make it into a sphere, it doesn't poke out the sides, so you can inlay on the flat surface and make it into a sphere afterwards. We created a circle. This one is 80 diameter and we wanted it 40 tall. So we made a circle and then we used the create 3D shape. So that was the half of sphere. And then I got a picture of a real pool ball to get the sizing of the inlay and the 8 more or less right. And then the inlay was done with the V-Inlay tool, which made it simple, no working out. This maple is the male inlay and the walnut is the female. We've screwed down a piece of maple, we've just zeroed the machine to the surface, a couple of toolpaths for cutting out the plug. It's marvellous, it's exactly as expected. The most complicated part is probably the two-sided part. So on the first side, we're gonna cut dowel holes, like reference holes for the 8-ball. So we've got 2 to the right and 1 to the left. You can't really get it wrong as long as you remember which way you're turning over your material, whether it's horizontally or vertically. So our 3 holes on our material will line up with 3 holes in the bed. The holes line up when it's been turned over horizontally, left to right. So it should locate exactly. Dowels are normally circular and you make the hole the right size and you want the dowel to be a tight fit so it's accurate. Because they fit all the way around the circle, sometimes they can be quite hard to push into the holes that you've made for them. It might be easier if I 3D printed it, and instead of 3D printing a round dowel like you can get by dowels already, I thought if I made it triangular, but with the 3 corners equal to the radius of the hole, when you're popping a peg, a 3D printed dowel in, you've only got 3 points of contact. So it's easier to put in, it's easier to take out and swap it, and they're reusable as well. First thing that's gonna happen on this side, because we've got our plug ready, we now need a female part of the inlay, so we're gonna do that. So there'll be a roughing pass and then a final pass with the 30-degree bit to finish the female part off. We glued the 2 things together. We're just inspecting it to see if there's anything that needs to be removed. A little bit of sandpaper folded or a toothbrush, or just to make sure that the 2 mating surfaces are clean. Old PVA wood glue is kind of water-based. I find that I get a much better bond if I paint both. You don't have to wet it through, but just paint both surfaces with some water first and just let it sit for a minute. We glued the 2 things together. We milled off the maple from the top that will leave the bottom of the plug in the female part, and then we'll start to cut the 3D shape, the sphere shape of the 8-ball on top. First we're going to rough it with a 6mm end mill. Sometimes there's bits left with a roughing pass that your bullnose bit might catch, and it'll probably be fine. I take away the chance of anything going wrong by making this profile cut down to a certain level so that there's enough space for your bullnose. And then a 6mm bullnose will finish it up and make it all nice and smooth. I go at 45 degrees, so it just makes it like the best of both worlds, especially when you're doing your finishing pass over the end grain, which can sometimes end up furry like this. It's like at 45 degrees is just the sweet spot. We could have cut this a lot finer, you can see, can you see the tool marks? I quite like that because it gives you a guide to the sanding. So once you've got rid of those marks with a 120 grit, then you can move to 240. If you're sanding something that's flat, I'd normally recommend, you know, a little block of wood or a pad or something that is flat. So you want something flat to sand something that's flat. So this, we're gonna have to move around continuously so that it's sanded even, so you don't end up with a flat spot, and you absolutely don't use a flat pad to sand something that's curved. Some people are a bit frightened of using a low grit on something, especially if it's taken a long time to make. You naturally want to be gentle with it, but you'll be sanding all day with 240. This just, it gets the job done to a certain point. So we're starting to get the machining marks to go. So we just need to be careful how far we go and swap at the right time, so that when everywhere is almost smooth, we'll swap to 240 and carry on with that. This is a sanding sealer. So this puts, well, kind of like a seal on the grain, and then we'll use some 400 grit to kind of smooth it off. You don't really want to wet this through. You just want a thin coating of it. It's also a nice indication when you've sprayed it on of the colour that it's going to finish like. We're not trying to sand the sanding sealer off. We just want to give it a light pass, and you can tell the colour goes from quite a vivid colour back to being slightly more matte and dusty. So we're just taking the top off, and we burnished it like old brown packing paper, something that's a little bit crunchy, but it's got zero grit, so it's not going to take any material away. It kind of flattens the fibres of the fine fibres that are left. It flattens them down and kind of gets it ready for your polish. That's the absolute last thing. If I oil something, I need to leave it a day before I come back and do it again. So for this, if you're selling a product, this type of wax is fantastic. I'm not the king of finishing. I think I've probably just made more mistakes. I've ruined more pieces to get to a point where I'm a little bit more confident about what I'm going to get at the end. And it's probably because of all the mistakes that I've made. Less is more. So you don't want to be spreading this on like you spread your toast with butter. We'll probably do 2 coats of this, but it's the same process. You just wipe it on as thin as you can, leave it for 20 minutes and buff it off. As the saying goes, here's one that I made earlier, and I made this one about 18 months ago, something like that, on my machine at home, using the same size tools and the same toolpaths that we've used today, and 18 months apart, and they will match perfectly. You could assemble this as a finished product from 2 halves, made 18 months apart. It's a bit of everything. If you've got your machine set up properly and it's calibrated, there's no reason why anybody couldn't do this on 2 machines that are as perfect as they can be. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen, especially if it's done in the same software as well. Thanks for watching. Give it a go.